I want to be for my own people, my own creed, and I don't hate all of you, but I realize that, I need to have a certain amount of space to stay a tribe and survive. Now, it's very hard to talk to people of different races like this and still remain friends because generally they feel from all the propaganda that they are entitled to frown on any tribalism from whites. Even more important is that if you say certain things among these people, the worst of the non-whites will quickly turn to violence, and therefore those that follow these rules online in the real world, they struggle to do the same thing. If you are a kind and decent person, as many nationalists are, you'll probably hold a door open for a Muslim at some time or other. That is just the way you are. You are a good person and you don't hate people in any dense-minded way. You just realize the result of all this is going to be bad. And folks, believe me, being a nationalist and trying to do something is by far the lesser of two evils. There have already been thousands of people killed at the funeral pyre of multiculturalism. More and more we are becoming strangers in our own lands. As different cultures and customs grow in strength, we begin to act like them. You have white boys who are born in majority black areas and they become these sort of wiggers who speak in Jamaican patois. They don't do it because they are bad people, they do it because of their surroundings. And the clever way this trap has been built for our people so that you have to obey. In an area like that, if you were more white and did not speak like that, you would stand out. Life would be harder. This hatred of nationalists, of people who have done something to try and save our own races, have been labelled as racists, xenophobes, Islamophobes, and whatever else. But as we see in the Bible, it says, John 15:18, if the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. That is the word of Christ. Christ was a rebel. He was hated because he did not care for getting kudos from the world. Also, look at Matthew 5:11. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. The liberals are vindictive creatures, and they do this because they realize, whether consciously or unconsciously, that they will be going to hell because they have not followed God's laws. God looks after his own, and the liberals do not want a part of that. They hate their birthright, they spit on it, they are self-loathing, and they realize that because God does not like them, they are going to vindictively support foreign peoples so that they can take over. The nationalist, as I have explained, has to be a rebel, a loner. He has to be reviled, because the stuff he preaches, there is no way of putting it that other races or tribes in this world will ever like you. But the virtues that the nationalists have is strong, independent character and honour. The liberals are the worst people in society. They really are the bottom feeders because they are too weak or often too stupid to form an opinion of their own, so they go with the fashionable way of thinking because it doesn't cause them much bother and they can still go out and take drugs at the weekend and whatever else. These people are morons and hedonists, and they spit often at nationalists or people who are trying to prevent this deliberate attack on our race because they inwardly hate themselves. They realize that they are nothing and nobody special, and that the people who are standing up, they hate them because they are jealous. It is the same hatred from the other races. They are jealous of our people because we are God's children and we have much greater chance of making it to God's heaven than them. This is the root of all evil, the green eye. Not only is it a danger socially to preach nationalist doctrine, but it is also a danger for your livelihood. People will out you. As I said, left wing are vindictive creatures. They will try and get you fired, and in many cases they will succeed. But one has to remember the trials of Jesus. If Jesus had been a people pleaser, the crowd would not have asked Barabbas to have been taken down from the cross. They would have asked Christ because he was preaching to the choir, so to speak, the mob, the useless, iniquitous, idiotic people that make up the majority of all tribes. The left are essentially cowards, and they look for validation from men. They love the praise of men. As a nationalist, I was quite like this at one time as a child, but I realized as I got older that most of what the majority of people was preaching was wrong, false, and even idiotic. When I realized this, I had a sort of epiphany, and I realized eventually that nationalism is true and righteous. The problem is the way it is applied often. People will call you a racist or an anti-Semite or a white supremacist. Now, I would say I was guilty on all three counts, and I don't give a monkey's because these words are divisive, they have very ambiguous meanings, you don't really know what they are, and it seems to be that your enemies decide whether you are or aren't, not yourself. So it's no point in denying them. If you deny them, everyone knows that you're just covering up the fact that you are all of these things. It doesn't matter. These things are not a crime. The enemy makes out they're a crime. The things that are mostly a crime in this world are things committed against children by some of the perverts in our government and violent assault, yobs on the street that beat up on people who are vulnerable. Those are disgusting crimes, and those should make people hate it. If you want to fight this curse that has been brought upon us, my only suggestion is to read your Bible and follow God properly. Observe the Sabbath day and start treating him with some respect. Now, one thing I will say again, as they say, often call people things such as a white supremacist. Now let's face it, folks, whether you're a Christian nationalist like myself or a pagan or whatever else, you are a white supremacist because you believe your own race is the best and you believe in separation. World domination is a little bit far off at this stage, considering we are dying out. It is not our priority to take over the world, although we were once brilliant to do it without too much difficulty. Liberalism was the disease born from decadence and sin that took all our land away from us. No, we are merely now begging for our existence as pure white Europeans in the future. But I guess technically I am a white supremacist because I prefer my own race, and even though there are terrible people within my own race, such as lying, craven cowards in the left, especially the politicians that are mainly in it for the money and whatever else perverted pleasures they get from it that are brushed under the rug by our corrupt government. Now, it is such a difficult situation now. It would have been a lot easier 10, 20, 30 years ago where minorities could be kind of kept in their own area, not necessarily even deported, but we could have been allowed racial separation. That, I believe, is also still possible given a government that condones it. However, there is simply too many of these people now in our country. It would be very hard to humanely send them all back to the third world. Although I believe this is possible if we would put all the foreign aid into building them decent housing, and upon them returning to their own lands, they would be able to educate the others to a better standard of living, instead of our corrupt humanitarian charities that want these people to stay poor so they travel to our countries. We could make their lives easier once we got back on our own feet. The third world could be treated very well and humanely within their own countries. The problem now, though, is that most of these people born here obviously identify British or Finnish or Irish or whatever. So it is a very difficult situation we find ourselves in. The only reason that the Zionists have power is because they are ruthless, they are thoroughly racist, and they are thoroughly tribal. And they laugh at us for our idiocy of not realizing these things.